change management, the process. The reason it's one of my favorites is as industry, has moved from launching new cars in 8 years to 5 years to 3 years, and cell phones are getting released, like every 90 days. The whole product launch process has put a lot of emphasis on engineering change. And part of the presentation is about, I work as a facilitator between operations and IT a lot in companies. And people spend way too much time arguing about, well, engineering change belongs in ERP, and they go, well, no, it belongs in the PLM app, and well, no, we got to have it in the quality app. And my message to the groups is you need to understand the process before you start arguing about what software it belongs in. And surprisingly, a lot of people don't necessarily understand the process. So that's what we're going to go through today. And we already went through the housekeeping, which is great. So why now, why today? Let's talk about the process. Let's look at the non-value added waste in a lot of processes. If there is a role of software, what does it play? Kind of summarize it. And if anybody needs some help in this area, I've got a free proof of concept offer for participants today. So again, why now? New product introduction is at a faster pace than it's ever been in my 30+ years in manufacturing. And product launch, whether it's APQP or NPL or whatever acronym you use, engineering change is a major part of it as you go through prototype and pre-production and production. So what my research and my experience has shown, the need for a rapid engineering change is critical. People have to understand what it is, how it behaves, and what it does. If you just kind of talk to people that are arguing about software and say, stop, just tell me about engineering change right now. How do you do it? And I've found that it's often poorly defined and therefore poorly executed. And these changes are often disruptive and extremely costly. Everyone knows conceptually the best time to do engineering changes is in prototype, is in pre-production. But the bulk of changes are still hitting organizations. And by the way, it gets worse as you go from the OEM to the tier 1 to the tier 2 and down, because the guys at the bottom usually get it last minute and you need a response in 48 hours. But they're costly. And the other challenge is the talk we had before about qualities and CFOs and what we need to know about each other is the CFOs, they can't track it. The accounting system isn't designed to track the costs of this. So conceptually, we know what's going on. We know it's disruptive. We know we need to work on it and approve it. So why is it complex? I mean, geez, John, I mean, how hard can an engineering change request be? I mean, you just ask for something, you review it, you decide, and, on or off. I said, well, wait a minute. We can have one part that's a Rev A that has 30 change requests on it. Is there a way to put all those together so that we go from Rev A to Rev B with all 30 versus A1, A2, A3, and everybody gets confused? The other one is, well, yeah, I've got a single change request, but it impacts 10 different parts. So, all right, well, how do we handle that? And all these 10 parts have to be re-PPAP'd or re-reviewed? Well, yeah, they do. And then we have a single product that might be impacted, but it's in the bill of material for 5 different assemblies. So just this deck alone is a real this slide alone is a real interesting conversation to put up with your organization. Say, well, wait, how do we do this? How do we track it? How do we engage people? So I try to get people to understand and talk about engineering change management is at least a 4-step process. And the reason I go through this is they go, well, ECRs are here, or ECNs go here. We call them change orders. All right, well, let's just define them. Let's define what a request looks like and what the meaning of that is. A change notice looks like, a change order looks like. And the fourth one, I don't even want to guess on the statistics, but the fourth one is mostly ignored. And that is, hey, by the way, Did anything that we were hoping to get with a change request actually work? So let's go through those. If we have an ECR that's coming in, that can be from a customer. It can be your internal engineers. It may be a supplier coming to you and say, hey, look, if you do this or do this, you can reduce costs or do something. People also put in the same bucket as a change request, a engineering deviation request or a waiver, separate from a permanent one, which means, hey, I want to do this, but I only want to do it for 90 days. Or you may go to a customer and say, hey, this is what this requirement said, but I'd like a deviation on these 30 parts. And regardless of the source, regardless of the scope what's coming in, the main part of a change request is a decision. Should we or shouldn't we do it? You know, it's a good idea. You know, well, what do you have to look at? Well, let's look at the impact and related costs. Do we have parts in inventory? Where's things at? What's going on? What's the risk? High risk, you got to think about a little bit higher. Lower risk, kind of obvious, that's fine. And then back to that previous slide, what does everything impact on here? Who all has to react to this? And the last one that I've also seen is there's not good rules about who gets to vote. You know, does everybody have to agree on every type of change request, or are there level 1s or level 2 requests? And are there some things that we can do internally? Or even a bigger impact that I've seen gaps in is, no, we can't change things internally without design authority, without getting customers' approval. Or from the purchasing side, hey guys, you did all those changes and you didn't tell the suppliers. And we don't know what the impact is going to be on the supply base. So on the should or shouldn't you do, is this a safety issue? Is it the right thing to do, or is it just a cost issue? Does this impact the short term? Is this a long-term change? Is it a deviation or a waiver? Do we stop shipments, manufacturing? I mean, what's going on with this change request as far as a risk? Costs. Where are we in the product life cycle? Again, if we're in prototype stage, yeah, bring them on. Bring them in, let's learn about it, let's get better at it. But you know, if you start sending me this stuff in pre-production or production, it changes a lot. And again, are there related parts, current inventory? If we change it, again, the operations guys are going, what do you want me to do with this? Do you want me to ship what we have? Do we have to pull it out of the warehouse and make changes to it? Did we go down to the suppliers and see what's going on with them? And again, the impact on the reputation. A lot of the reputation impact is not necessarily a cost issue, but reputation, depending where you are in the supply chain with, if you're an OEM with the marketplace, if you're a tier 1 with your customer. So organizations need to go through this conversation as a team and figure out should we or shouldn't, how we're going to do that. You know, who needs to vote? If it's critical, you know, if it's a financial impact of some number or greater, then, you know, we need VP level approvals. If it affects a product in the field, we got a recall. That's a big one. If it's a safety related issue, and again, you know, safety related issues are, you know, product recall, class 1 type changes. If it's major, well, then maybe that's some impact, financial impact under this number. And you can say, look, it affects the service organization. There's some inventory outside, but we need directors to sign off on that. And if it's minor, and this is what frustrates a lot of the engineers who I talk to that says, look, we're in pre-production. You know, we know what's going on. There was a typo error on the print. It doesn't affect form, fit, or function. Doesn't affect inventory. You know, low impact, there's no field service. You know, do we need VPs and directors to sign off on that? Or can we give the engineers that are in the day-to-day operations the ability to say, no, look, if it's this kind of level, you guys decide and move on. Okay, so we talked about a change request process. Where does it come from? What's the risk? What's the cost? Who gets to decide? If you decide to move forward, let's talk about an engineering change notice. And this is another one that a lot of executives that I work with, this isn't even on their radar. They're not even thinking about it. And it's like, okay, if we decide to do this, now how does the process identify who needs to know about the change and what do they have to do to prepare for the change, just to get ready for it. Again, that's, well, implement this tomorrow. Whoa, 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 whoa. I can't change all this stuff by tomorrow. 48 hours, and what's a good timeline? How does it impact engineering? What's manufacturing got to do? What do the quality folks have to do? Do we have to read PPAP? Did purchasing contact all the suppliers and see the impact? Did marketing look at if we had to change packaging? Did the customers get noticed? Are the suppliers updated? What needs to be updated and who needs to be updated? And again, we talked about this briefly. In the change request, we were supposed to look at the impact. If I already shipped it, do I got to bring it back? The stuff in the warehouse, do I got to bring that back? The stuff in production, I got stuff on the shipping or containers now. Do I pull those out? Do I have to rework them? Do I have to do something with them? What all needs to be updated? And this is the one that kind of freaks most people out when you say what needs to be updated. Again, for quality professionals, we understand PPAP and control plans and FMEAs and all that stuff. But as you start scattering across the rest of the organization, physical part counts, did it change pricing? Did the bill of material change? Engineering, did you tell us about this? Do I got to train the employees? Did the router change? Are the material specs? I mean, it's a lot. It's not a trivial concept, and I found that a lot of people just don't understand the impact across the organization. And I keep talking about big companies, but this is the same for small companies as well. The paperwork's got to be updated, the material's got to be updated, no matter how big or small your company is. Okay, so we got through an engineering change notice. We updated everything. A miracle happened. Somehow we figured out everything has to do. Then this is when we say change order. That says, okay, everything's ready to go, green light. But even this conversation has to say, do you want it immediately? I mean, like, should I shut down the line today and do it and then get it running up after lunch? Or do you want it done by June 1st, June 15th? Do you want me to run out the current inventory? And then as soon as I'm done with that, go ahead and go to the new change? Existing parts, can I rework them, or is this a scrap? Or did you get a deviation as part of the change request and the change notice that says, no, it's okay, use as is, ship the stuff you got, this only impacts new parts? And then the last guy that a lot of people skip, and ironically, if you're teaching a class in school, you'd say, well, this is probably the most important thing, and that's change verification. So, and by the way, this is scary because I've had some clients go through and start this in their company, and they're kind of shocked at the results. What percent of the changes that we did were correct? Let me repeat that. What percent of the changes that we did, we actually did correctly? Did we actually do what we told everybody to do? I've seen percent effectiveness on changes lower than 50%. We spit them out all across the organization to suppliers, all the different plants, and it's a mess and it doesn't happen. All right, let's say that theoretically we fix that. So 100% of changes that we did exactly what we wanted to do. Next question, did we get what we expected? Remember, in the engineering change request process, that step, we're trying to say, well, why should we do this? I mean, is it a cost reduction? Is the quality going to be better? Is it easier to make? Are we error proofing? Why did we do this? Well, did we get it? If the change request was based on a 5% cost reduction, did we get 5%? Did we get 2%? Did we get 15%? And that's again where the financial folks get a little frustrated because they go, I don't know. I have no way to track that. Did we get the quality improvement we want? Did whatever we justified to do this, that it'll be easier to build, it'll be error proofed, you can't put the part in backwards, the flange did this. Well, that's great. Did it work? And again, not a lot of companies do that, but let's just keep going with the conversation. We did get what we expected. It's like, all right, great, 100% effectiveness. Everything we did was what we wanted to do. We got the cost reduction, or we got the quality improvement. The other part of the engineering change verification is, well, if it worked on this part, can we apply the same change to other parts? You know, the look across and read across mentality. You know, if it worked over here, let's look at the rest. And again, this is where the engineers get frustrated, where they're saying, well, wait a minute, if we're going to change it to the flange on part A, that flange is on 30 other parts. Well, oh no, we don't have time for that. Just get it done. We got to get this thing done. The customer's called about it. And again, we don't take the time to take a deep breath and say, well, wait a minute, what we learned from this thing is good for everything. Or let's just say, no, we didn't get what we expected. We didn't get the cost reduction. We didn't get the quality improvement. You probably should have a do-over phase. You probably should have something that says, well, wait a minute, guys, we spent a good amount of time and energy in the engineering change request process to decide yes or no. Hopefully you did. I can guarantee you spent a lot of time and energy on the engineering change notice, updating all those documents and changing and repeat mapping and doing all that stuff. You probably should check to make sure it worked, and if it didn't, start over. As far as the automation, and this is where I got involved in some of the facilitating between operations and IT departments. There is kind of a small company, big company subject here. The current state of the art in most companies right now is still Microsoft Excel on some shared drive, K drive, or in SharePoint, or some place, Google Docs, wherever you're putting it. They're trying to manage a pretty robust process we just went through: change request, change notice, change order, verification in Excel. Well, Excel and email. And it's a mess. And that's why I've had a couple engineers, I've been at accounts on the weekend, on a Saturday or something, going through and talking to people. And the atmosphere, the attitude in the engineering department is kind of upbeat. And I've asked several people, I go, why do you, it's Saturday, why do you guys like working on Saturday? And they said, well, it's the only time we really get to do engineering. Monday through Friday, we're chasing Excel and updating this and trying to figure this and going to meetings after meetings, and we're not doing any engineering. We're doing admin work, clerical work. And basically, back to Excel or whatever version of that, they're personal productivity tools. They were never designed to be enterprise business systems. Again, if you're a small company, I got one engineering guy, one quality guy, one purchasing guy. We sit in a room every morning and every end of shift, and we go through it. You might not need something that complicated, but as you get bigger, you do. So what I'm suggesting is that 4-phase process: request, notice, order, verification. Look at that and look to see where your gaps are. And more importantly, take a process view, not a point view, which all of you know in the new standards, it's all process. Show me a process flow. Show me what's going on. This isn't reviewing current documents. It's not focusing on engineering because it's engineering changes. Trying to look at how it impacts everybody and start with the process flow chart. And they go, all right, they go up to grease board and they go, well, here's what it is. Engineering might get up there and go, it's just this. It's not that complicated. And then somebody else from purchasing or quality or goes out and goes, well, nah, it's kind of more like this. I mean, you go over here, and then if that happens, I got to send it over here, and then I got to send it over to engineering. I got to get the supplier notified. They got to come back and tell me. The customer never gave me and it turns out to a mess. And what it should be, and what it can be, because I've helped companies do this, is keep it pretty simple. Change request, change notice, change order, verification. Now, if we get there, and I'm oversimplifying this, I know that a little bit, but if we can get there, then we can start talking about, well, where does it belong? And this is how most people start the conversation. Well, it belongs up in ERP. They have to do the change orders. They got to tell scheduling. Well, wait a minute. It belongs to engineering. They have all the drawings. They have all the bill of materials. And then the quality guys are saying, well, we have a bunch of stuff we got to do with it. I haven't seen a lot of MES systems come up, but they're kind of on the map to say there's some more manufacturing going on. But what you need is something that ties it all together with a business workflow or a business process. And again, the mantra for all the new ISO standard changes: process, process, process. So don't talk departmentalized, don't talk software app-wise, look at what's going on. And that's where you start building these process flows. What do I want? How do I want engineering change to work? Give me a process flow. I want to initiate one. I've got to revise it. I've got to look for approval. If it's approved, I'm going to publish it from the change request or the notice, something as simple as that. And the idea is, here's another one that frustrates people, is if they're starting to look at some software tools and then all of a sudden the software they're looking at, it pops up the screen, and the people that use the current form, an example one on the left, they go, what? That doesn't even look anything like our form. You know, it doesn't have impact on the project risk, it doesn't have impact on it has the whole impact analysis isn't even in there. So if you can develop an approach that says, let's start with processes and let's build screens, if you will, that look like what we do now. Oh, that's all right. That's kind of cool. Little to no training required. I don't have to change all my existing documentation. You can use email as a user interface, and of course, cell phones like most people communicate on. And therefore, now you're going back into the people that have to look at change requests and impact analysis and change notices. And they go, okay, thanks, man. This is great, man. It's so much easier than Excel. It really helps people understand it really helps people use what they currently understand, and you usually get smiley faces, because if not, if you throw a PLM at them, they go, you just made my job harder. I don't even know what this thing is. I don't know how it works. It doesn't look like my form. I don't know what you want me to do with it. So the company name PProso is based on people, process, and software. And a quick comment. I was one of the guys for 20 years was selling software. I'd come in and say, hey, look at this great software. It does exactly what you want. It does. And they go, and the people look at me with these blank faces and go, I don't even understand those screens. I don't even know what you're talking about. So as I got old and maybe a little wiser, I said, all right, you know what, let's push software way down to the bottom. Let's sit down with your people, understand what's going on, develop the process, and then talk software, but absolutely in that order. So when you're starting to look at the people and you're trying to talk to the CFO and you're trying to get funding and you're trying to get all this stuff done, we got to talk benefits and value. I want to make sure that we aren't just focusing on, oh, you have to do that for ISO or for 16949 or 1345 or whatever vertical you're in. Look, we want to do this so we can get more markets and more market share by interacting and getting stuff they want better, quicker, faster. No use coming out with snow blowers in June. We've got to make sure. So we want to do this. We want to have this conversation. We want people to get together and talk about engineering change and talk about the processes so we can get a faster time to market. We want to reduce the cycle times and product costs through getting people together and doing this. Well, geez, John, I thought we were doing that now. Well, we are kind of, sort of, but it's poorly defined. There's a bunch of spreadsheets on the K drive. There's a bunch of emails, and 30% of our change requests that we implement, put out there, aren't followed. I mean, that's the kind of conversation that once you bring that to the executive team, they kind of get a little frustrated because they didn't know it, but once they know, it's like, okay, how do we solve this? And all those delivery lead times. I mean, think about, and I don't want to go back to all the things I already discussed, but think about the impact on current inventory when we discussed about that. Think about pulling back everything that's already been shipped, everything that's already in a warehouse, everything that's already on trucks or rail going to the customer, and the impact of the cost of that. All right, call FedEx Air, we'll put on the airplane and send it to them. And again, this compliance risk mitigation, one of the speakers coming up is the new ISO standards. We want a rock solid process with robust audit trail. We want to know if a time to get a change request approved is 30 to 60 days, just a change request. Once you say do it, the change notice is going to take us another 30 days. Once you do that, if everything's coordinated between the ERP app that's sending out the schedule and everything else, yeah, that goes pretty quick. Once you say do it, it goes pretty quick. We don't always do it right, but we do it fast. And by the way, there's this whole other section in here that we're talking about verification that it actually worked. We don't do that at all. But once we put that together, then it might make sense looking at it. Inventory waste. I was a production supervisor at one point in my career, and I ran shifts. I mean, 3, 4, or 5 days of parts of the wrong revision. The change request, they didn't use all the terms I just used, but the change request went out according to engineering, but I never got it. So I didn't know that we had to change or do something. I made wrong parts. We scrapped them. We had part obsolescence. Yeah, everything in the warehouse, just throw it away. And all the stuff the suppliers have, same thing, throw it away. We want to improve our decision-making analysis capability. We want to improve management review. Change verification is the feedback into engineering. That's the one that says, hey, you told me if I move this flange, put this hole in, did this differently, that we're going to get these benefits. Hey, thanks a lot. It worked great. Appreciate it. Or, hey, it didn't work at all. But again, if you talk to your engineering group, how many times you get feedback on the change request you send out? Never. I mean, hardly ever do I hear somebody say, yes, I get that. No, I don't know if it worked. So what we want is a single consistent record of everything going on related to change management. And if we can, we could really get some good financial data by capturing the costs and the cycle times. It would be really helpful to know, hey, every engineering change request on average costs us 30 grand to make a decision. And, half of those don't work. Oh, by the way, all the times when you say change notice, go ahead and do all this stuff, that takes us, I'm making up numbers, that takes us 40 grand in labor to change all that stuff. We don't know that. We need to know that. So I've used these graphics in some of the discussions to go, John, still not following you. I said, all right, if you look at this chart, and what we're trying to do is to increase profit on new products. New products are coming to market. And program A, the blue guy, these are the number of change requests they did in the design phase, in the prototype phase, and pre-production phase, and production. Program B, the red guys, here's there. And I asked the group, and if I was in front of you guys, I'd ask you too to raise your hand. Which program do you think is going to have lower cost, higher profits? Well, it's blue, it's A. I mean, I don't mind changing stuff in design, but man, don't give me all that stuff in production. All right, let's do a new one. Same subject, we want to increase profit on new productions. What's the turnaround time? How long does it take to go from A to B to process a change request, change notice, change order, change verification? All right, program A again, the blue guys. Change request takes about 5 days. Change notice takes about 10 days. Change order takes about 7 days. Change verification, we do that, that's just automatic, we do it. Who's going to be more profitable? It's the blue guys again. If it takes me 15 days to process a change request, that's 15 days that as a production supervisor, I'm running parts you really don't want. Well, it's more than 15 days because I don't get the change order until after change notice. That's 15 plus 20, that's 35 days I'm running stuff that you don't want. Obsolescence, scrap it, can't do anything with it. These are the kind of graphics and analytics that get people to understand why we're doing this. And it's so much powerful than just saying, oh, you have to for ISO or you have to for something. So here's a summary on engineering change management. There's 4 steps, not 1. If in your company you call it ECRs or ECNs or ECOs, just say, wait a minute, hold on, let's really define what we mean by that. Because across your suppliers, across your employees, and across your customers, they may use a single acronym as well, and none of you are talking about the same thing. People process software, engage the people. I don't need to lecture on that. The ASQ team knows the importance of that. But a single process is critical. If you want to reduce variation, I got to have a single process. If you want to eliminate waste, I've got to know what's going on. I got to know cycle times. I got to know turnaround times. By the way, on the eliminate waste, the majority of the clients I work with that have done this say that the largest cause of delays is John's on vacation and we didn't reassign it to anybody. So it's just sitting in his inbox, just until we get back. So the process, and I didn't want to we didn't have time to go through that on this briefing, but the process has to have things like, out of office and on vacation, all that. And from a technology standpoint, consolidate those standalone tools. Having a K drive with 50 programs with 300 spreadsheets is not going to get you there. You need to look at business process management. You need to look at process workflows and something that ties together. I don't care where you end up putting it. If you can stuff it all into PLM, do it. If you don't have PLM and ERP can do it, fine, I don't care. If you bought a quality app that can do it, perfect. But just find a place where it's all the same to do that. Oh, and by the way, if you are going to try to put it together somehow, which most companies do, because none of the companies that I know of right now do a really, really good job at all 4 steps. Use enterprise data. What I mean by that, if there's a master part file in PLM, use that. Don't replicate it. If there's a change order process in ERP, use that. Don't come up with another one. So use as much as you got. So it's a huge opportunity. More revenue, lower cost, lower risk, higher compliance. And a lot of times when you start talking about technology, we'll say, look, I can either invest in the technology or I just add people. I mean, I can always add labor, and the people aren't going to necessarily have the memory that a due date reminder does or an email reminder does. But you can go through cost reducing benefits, cost reducing opportunity to justify it. A little bit about PProso. Again, we're trying to help people improve processes with software. We help people with a lot of different subjects. This happens to just be one of them. What I am offering to people that were on this session today is we have business process technology that we can share with you and go through with you, where we develop the process flows and go through everything I just talked about. There's no cost to that. We have a conversation about what you're doing now. We look at your forms and procedures, try to create a process that defines for it, shows you how to put your forms into a technology stack, and then present to see if people will move with it. This time, be happy to, if there's any questions come through, Novell, be happy to take some questions.
Okay, thank you, John. I don't know if you're able to see the chat box or not.
Yep, hold on, let me bring that up.
Okay. I do see one question in the chat box.
Yeah, who should own this process, from Susan?
Right.
It's cross-functional. Hold on, let me think. I don't know if I have an immediate answer to that. It's kind of a common question about everything now in the, even like with ISO compliance, who owns the process? Because we're trying to say, show me the process, not the org chart, not the department chart. Here's a gut reaction, Susan. It's kind of like engineering change probably should be led by, if I want a champion, it'd probably be engineering. I don't, it depends on the culture. It depends on how your organization thinks. Theoretically, the best thing that may happen as we go through high-level structure and kind of rethink how we're doing quality, you may come up with process owners that may or may not be engineering. I'm kind of babbling a little bit. I don't know if I have a strong answer to that. Thomas or Henderson put in, everything makes sense, but converting an organization is currently not set up to track costs. This level is expensive. What's the likelihood of convincing people to commit the investment? Well, the likelihood's good, but it's not trivial. When I brought up this slide deck that says, let's go look at how much we're spending here and how much you're doing, That takes time to even do that. It takes time to even look at what you're currently doing. My guess would be, and I've done this several times, is I do think most organizations will accept the good old industrial engineering approach where you just kind of do a, I don't want to call it a formal time study, but kind of an informal one, and say, hey, look, we did a quick study of the last 10 engineering changes, and they took about this much time and in labor and this much time on the calendar. And we estimate that to be this. In fact, I'll share one story with you. Right out of grad school, I went into a aerospace company. We were making aircraft landing gear. And the subject wasn't engineering changes, but it was non-conformance reports, MRP tickets. And there were a bunch of MRP tickets that didn't have this discipline behind it. So whether it was a trivial, repeatable, use as is, no-brainer deviation, it went through the same process. So I did a quick study, and I said, on average, and I'm presenting this to the executive team, on average, it costs $30,000 to process an MRB ticket. And the CFO goes, no. I said, no. I said, well, wait, hold on. You know, I worked with your analyst. Okay, your analyst helped me come up with this number, and that was whole part of the CFO pitch we talked about earlier. So I'm not making this up. And then somebody else goes, well, I still don't believe it. It can't be true. I said, okay, instead of 30,000, let's say it was 15,000. Let's say it was 10,000. You know, pick whatever smaller number you want. We still are processing trivial level 3 deviations through the same process. Why can't, you know, so-and-so do this? Again, kind of a long answer to your question, but the idea is, back to the CFO presentation I gave before, get your analysts involved, tell them what you're trying to do, ask them for help in doing it, and you have to do guesstimates, estimates, some rough studies, do it. You know, don't get overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, if I got to do that, that's going to take 6 months to do that. I'm going to need 10 people. No, stop. First of all, before you're trying to do the ROI, you got to get the process. You got to go back to that process map. And I guarantee you, guarantee is a strong word, but I would guess very highly that you're going to go through this kind of a conversation. What you think it is trivial. What it actually is a mess. And what you really want is the bottom. Until you do that, and by the way, depending how big or small you are or how you got to do it, this doesn't take that much time. Do that, then you can look at waste, then you can look at cost and say, look, if we took out this, 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 and this, and we let level 4 simple kit, you know, get approved by the engineers, we would do, you know, this is how we can do it. Hopefully that covered your question, Henderson. I don't know if the last name's Henderson or Thomas, but that's how it looks on the screen. All right, that's the only two that are on there. If there's anybody else who wants to type something in, if not, it's back to you guys.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for John?
You've got my email on the page. I'll be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. If there's anything that made sense to you and you'd like to even just talk about it, happy to engage you. I'm a big fan of ASQ. I've been a member for since 1982. Active in the sections, all that. Happy to help you any way I can.
Okay, well, before we let people go, then I'd like to remind everybody that our next webinar will be on Monday, June the 5th. That's the Let's Talk About Transition to ISO 9001-2015. That will be presented by Don Thomas. We look forward to seeing many of you then. If nobody has anything else, we'd like to thank John for giving this talk today, and for you all for coming, and we look forward to seeing you online in a couple weeks. Thanks, everyone, and hope everybody has a good Memorial Day weekend. Bye now.